Today I'm going to make chicken curry. So ingredients, got a kilogram of cubes of chicken, marinated in some yogurt, with some seasoning, salt and pepper, a little bit of red chili powder, tiny bit of lemon juice. Got some fresh chilies, just the one. We normally use more, and I'll explain why I've only used one. A little bit of fresh garlic, about 2 small onions finely sliced, some tomatoes. These are just chopped tomatoes, excess, which we then freeze and bring out as and when we need to. Big magic ingredient, this is garlic, ginger and fresh chilies, which have all been chopped down and then frozen and we use as and when we need to. And a cupboard full of spices. No, the real spices, this is our magic tin, where you've got predominantly turmeric, you've got cumin powder, salt, garam masalas, 2 different types. Let's start cooking. So I've got some oil on the pan. I'm going to put in some butter, let it all warm up, and then we're going to throw in our onions and brown them off. So as the butter starts to heat up in the oil, I'm now just going to add some, turn the heat down a little bit. I'm going to add some garlic. There we go. And I know I've got garlic in the cube, but I just love the smell of fresh garlic cooking. And into there now, what we're going to do, just let this cook for a few seconds. There we go. And then we're going to just chuck in our onions. Now the onions are going to take about 4 or 5 minutes to cook. They've got to be nicely browned into a nice thick paste before we can start to do anything else. So again, I'm going to leave this for now and come back to you when I'm ready for the next stage. So I've had about 10 minutes of cooking. I'll just turn the music down a bit. I've had about 10 minutes of cooking and you can see that the onions have reduced right down. No, they're not burnt, they're just nicely browned, which is exactly what you want. Sometimes people go even browner than this. Now into this, I'm going to throw in the garlic, the ginger and the chilies. I've also added the fresh chilies and I'm just going to cook that in for a couple of moments. Bring the heat down a bit more. Oh, it smells lovely. Let's cook that in for a few minutes. I'll come back to you again. So now you can see it's beginning to really cook. This is what's commonly known as tadka. So when you order tadka dal from the restaurant, they cook the dal and then they do this with the onions and then put this into the dal to give it the final finished flavour. So you can see how the onions have reduced right down. And the reason I only put one fresh chilli, because we had all the extra chilies from the frozen garlic and ginger and chili as well. So if you add too much, then it really becomes too hot to eat. The other thing with this is that, I'll just turn the heat down a bit. If you don't brown the onions this much, then what you end up with is a very sweet sort of curry. So you really need to get them reduced right down before you do anything else. And now I'm going to add in my spices. So I've added in salt, turmeric, garam masala, both types. If you didn't use fresh chilies, then at this stage you could actually have put in some cayenne chili powder, fresh chili, red chili powder if you wanted to. You can now just see how the consistency of this base is now just changing, and it's almost perfectly ready for me to actually put my tomatoes in now. So what you see now is I've got this wonderful tomato base. It's almost like an amazing arrabbiata sauce, even if you just wanted to have this with just plain pasta. So it's really cooked in, lovely, nice thick sauce. And now we're sort of ready to add in our chicken. One thing I should mention about the frozen tomatoes, if you've got fresh tomatoes that are starting to go off a little bit, put them in the freezer. Let them freeze and then use them for cooking. Run them under the hot water tap before you add them in, and the skin just peels off and they just condense down beautifully into any sort of tomato sauce that you want to make. Right, so I'm going to get my chicken out, so bear with me a minute. you can see how it's just really sort of and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave that just to cook on a slow heat for maybe a good half hour, good hour. Just come and check it once in a while, see what it's like, and then, oh look at that, just delicious. Good mix, get it all worked in. Looks good. Hope it tastes good. Right, that's it for now. Come back to you in a while. Curry's cooking away nicely. You can see it's quite a lot of gravy in there. If you wanted to have less gravy, you just add less tomatoes. So then you've got a very sort of dry curry as opposed to one with lots of gravy on it. I like this sort of thing because this is ideal with potatoes, and you can see quite small potatoes that begin to cook already quite nicely, all going really well. Earlier on when I was talking about the spices, I talked about the chili, ginger and garlic cube. If you don't have access to that, then really you just want a little bit of ginger, a couple of green chilies, 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, and just blend them all together, make your own version of that fresh, and it works beautifully. It's just because we use it so often, we have it already done in the freezer. So we're going to go on to the rice next. Basmati rice, and the beauty, or what you really want to end up with when you cook rice, is non-starchy rice, so almost like every grain is individual when you're eating it. So best thing to do that I find, there's lots of different ways that people cook rice, but the way I like to do it is that I like to soak the rice first. So I'm going to get about 200 milligrams of rice. Here we go. Now what I'm going to do is with the rice, is give it a good wash first, and then I'm going to leave it to soak in cold water for about an hour, 45 minutes, half an hour thereabouts. The idea there is that the starch just comes out of the rice naturally before you cook it. Then I'm going to drain the rice, and I'm going to steam. I'm going to cook it, steam cook it in twice the quantity of water. So about 200 milliliters of rice. I'm going to use 400 milliliters of water and cook the rice in that. So I'm just going to soak it now, and we'll see how that goes. So just put the rice in to soak, and you can already see that the starch is coming out, but I'm going to leave it for a little bit longer. I'm going to give it a bit of wash just to get rid of bits and bobs. You know, it shouldn't be anything on it, but just to be sure. And then I'm going to rinse it a few times with cold water, and then leave it to soak in cold water a good half hour. And soaked, rinsed 3 or 4 times. You can see how the water is much clearer because a lot of the starch has already come out. But I'm going to leave it now for another sort of 25 minutes or so, and then it's ready for cook. In the time being, I'm going to just slice sort of 1/4 of an onion, put some ghee on, and just gently fry the onion, ready for the rice, and then we'll go from there. So that rice has now been soaking for a good half an hour or so. You can see how clear the water is. So a lot of the starch has come out. This is going to be ready. So I'm going to drain it off, and then we go on to the next stage of cooking the rice. A bit of ghee in the pan. Let's turn the heat down a little bit, and ghee is just purified butter. It's traditionally what we'd cook with as opposed to oil or butter, and it just adds flavour to what we're doing. So once that's melted down a bit, what I'm going to do is just put in a little bit of onion. And the idea with the onion is really not to brown it like we did when we made the chicken curry. It's just really just to cook it off a little bit, just so it goes a little bit clear. And turn the heat down a bit more. Just to soften up the onions just a little bit, because they're going to cook with the rice. That's sizzling away nicely. Now, give me a second, I'm now going to add the rice. We've got 200 milliliters of the rice, and what I'm going to do is just coat it in the ghee. That actually also helps when the rice is cooked, for it all to stay in individual pieces as opposed to be all stuck together. Lovely, that's super. Now I'm going to add in 400 milliliters of water. That's twice the quantity of rice. There we go. We're going to give it a good stir. We're not going to touch it again. This is a mistake that a lot of people make. They keep stirring it afterwards. We're going to give a good stir. Bring it to the boil. And then, when all the water's evaporated off, that rice will be perfectly cooked. So just going to turn the heat up a little bit, bring it to the boil, and we're ready to go. Speak to you soon. So we just check again. Oh, that's looking good. Make sure the heat's low. Yeah, that's almost cooked. If you see a little bit of water there, if you were to leave this in there too long, it'll all burn. Now I'm just going to add a little finishing touch of saffron, and when you mix that up, we just get a little soft colouring to this. See where we've got to. So here's the rice. I think that's pretty much done. Yeah, you can see it's not actually sticking to the bottom. That's lovely. Let's just turn the heat off. It's one of my favourite songs on the music there. Give it a good mix. So pardon me a second. You can see that rice, every individual grain in there. A little bit of onion in there as well, which is really nice and soft. Lovely, absolutely super, ready for eating. Perfect. Just put the lid back on that. It's off the heat. And now let's see how our chicken curry is doing. Gosh, it's looking good. And the key now is to make sure that our potatoes are cooked. I know when I last made a curry for Ray, and I put potatoes in, and he had to take them out and put them in the microwave again because they were a little bit raw. That's how I like my potatoes. I like, oh no, that's cooked, that's nice. Yeah, perfect. So, there we have it. Chicken curry, off the bone, with plain rice, and this is going to be served with a green salad, simple salad, and some yogurt. And normally when we have the family around, we might have had another curry to go with it, but because it's only the two of us, this will keep us going probably for about 2 or 3 days. Lovely, thank you very much. Oh, I should say the kitchen is still spotless even after all that cooking, so there you go, no mess, all tidied up whilst the rice was cooking, all done.